Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Nikitinaknits. My name is Evgeniya and in this video I'm sharing with you 10 knitting patterns from March, freshly released and selfishly chosen. So I chose them all for my future needs. Hopefully, if I have all of the time in the world, I would knit every single pattern myself, and that's why I'm already commenting on the yarn during my pattern roundups, because I don't always go with the recommended yarns, so I think it's very nice to also give some substitutes and my reasoning behind it. So by the end of the video, you don't only have patterns, but you also have some ideas for the yarn choice. And because of that, the success of the project is increasing, because I think the yarn is, I don't know, maybe 70% of success. You can have the perfect pattern, but if the yarn choice is wrong or you don't like it personally, then what can we speak about? It's not a successful project. I also shortly comment on the construction, so you have some idea how it's knitted, and of course my personal excitement and my thoughts on the whole pattern. So with that being said, let's begin. Grab your knitting, grab your favorite drink. Today I'm having some really tasty apple tea, very nice fruit tea. And let's start with gorgeous patterns from the March of 2026. The first pattern is Zosia Cardigan by Cheryl Mokhtari. And this cardigan is something I was just watching during the production, during the creation, the testing process, and every time I was just wondering when it's going to be released because it's so beautiful. This cardigan is going to be for sure on my needles, maybe not right now because I already have a lot of plants and a lot of yarn to knit, but for sure maybe this autumn or next spring. And this cardigan actually reminds me so much of Cezanne style. If you know the brand, you know what I'm meaning here, but basically it's the vintage motifs that are implemented so nicely with the modern designs, and the combination of it just creates a very unique appearance. And this cardigan has this perfect blend of the vintage motifs and the modern appliances. We have a drop shoulder, we have a beautiful crew neck, we have the oversized fit overall, and it just looks so beautiful and so wearable. So while you do put a lot of effort, since this is a color work project knitted back and forth, it is not a sticked project, so you do put quite a lot of effort in it. You will probably get a lot of wear out of it if you enjoy the finished object, right? The color work motif looks very interesting because these lines contain of different motifs that then repeat each other, but at the same time is not overwhelming and not too much. So this one has a perfect balance, and the colors that the designer chose for her sample just look beautiful. The browns, the blues, the cream is just absolutely beautiful. So it is knitted on 5mm needles with the worsted weight yarn, and the yarn recommended is Easier Soft. Easier Soft has a structure of blown yarn, so basically a cord of cotton that is blown and filled up with the alpaca. The alpaca that is used in this yarn is very harsh, I would say. It's not the softest yarn, but that's very good because the fibers are going to be sticked to each other. I saw this yarn in the yarn shop, I touched it, and it's quite nice. It's quite sticky to each other, which is very good for the color work. But I have to say that these type of blown yarns don't have so much structure to them, like if I would go for a twisted yarn or like a Shetland yarn. So it really depends which you prefer. I would pay attention to the ribbing. The ribbing doesn't look the most neatest in this type of yarns. You probably will need to knit it a bit more tight, maybe even use transparent lace elastic thread. That could be also an option, or just try your best to make it as neat as possible. But if we look at the samples, it doesn't look the most sturdy and the most neat ribbing, so that is something to consider. I saw the sample on Instagram knitted with Pergent and silk mohair held together, and that looks very beautiful. So that provides you with more structure, more clarity, way more weight, because Pergent is way more heavy than Easier Soft, but at the same time you have a better ribbing, you have a better structure, and overall the garment is going to hold the shape way better with time. So now shortly about the construction. It is knitted top down, completely flat. That means you will have to purl in the color work motif. If you've never knitted color work before, maybe it's not the best project to start because you have to first try the color work and the stockinette. But depends, if you're a very ambitious knitter who never knitted color work and you're so desperate about it, maybe you can also try it. Regardless of that, you just need it top down flat with quite a good shaping and the back and the shoulders to provide a really good fit. And then when you're done with that, you cast on stitches for the sleeves and also do the shoulder rows to create a beautiful fit and the sleeve cap, and then knit your sleeves down. Really beautiful cardigan. I can't wait to try it and see in the end which yarn I would go with. Next one is so lightweight and springy, which is perfect for this exact season to cast on. It is Lina Sweater by Kolibri by Johanna. A breezy, airy, lacy blouse. I wouldn't even call it a sweater, which is also perfect for the summertime. So in the mornings and in the evenings, or if it's just a cloudy day and you live in a colder place, that is just a perfect piece. It is going to take quite a lot of time because it's knitted on 3.5mm needles with a 24 stitch gauge per 10 centimeters, and it is an oversized drop shoulder sweater, so we do have a great amount of positive ease. But this is something amazing also for the summer and for the spring. Maybe it gets too hot and we don't want to sweat into our garments, right? We want some air going through our body. Perfect design. It's just so beautiful, especially in this dusty pink that she's wearing. The only thing I would change here is maybe I wouldn't do the twisted rib collar. I believe it's also folded over colors. So for this type of design, in my personal preference, I would maybe go with something else. Maybe with the double knit thin collar, maybe with a 9-cord, maybe with any sort of other edging. I would just experiment because you do need it separately right after you finish the whole sweater. In my personal choice, I wouldn't go for this type of color, but depends. I know a lot of people prefer that, so you choose what you like here. So what else to say? When I zoomed up the lace motif, I just melted. The wavy motif that is going through the beautiful panels on the stockinette and the pearl stitches reminds me of berries or flowers or any sort of blooming. Is just absolutely beautiful. I can't really explain it, but when I look at this motif, I just feel so relaxed and so calm, and it almost works on me like a meditation. I don't know what's up with this pattern. I really enjoy it. So now about the yarn. The yarn choice is La Manna Premia and La Manna Verona. La Manna is a beautiful company, German company. I actually have this yarn in my stash. So La Manna Verona is this light fingering thread that contains of 50% wool, 30% cashmere, and 20% silk. Oh no, 30% silk and 20% cashmere. And it is quite lightweight for the contents, provides very beautiful softness because of merino and very soft wool, and creates a beautiful drape because of the silk. I really enjoy this, and I can't wait to knit a lot of summer garments in this yarn. And La Manna Premia is basically their mohair that is 300 meters per 25 grams. Extremely soft, extremely luxurious, super nice. I do recommend this combination. So the construction is top down seamlessly, where you knit back and front panels first, connect them, knit the body, and then knit separately the sleeves. Cast on and the sleeve, and knit the sleeve down. Very beautiful design, and I can't wait to see more versions on Ravelry, so maybe I can also knit it one day. The sun is absolutely killing me. It is a sunset right now, but it's going to pass really quick, so I just continue. The next design is Marlin Sweater by Pernille Larsen, the designer behind Knitting for Olive yarn. I guess a lot of people are familiar with their designs and they enjoy them. The only thing, sometimes I hear that the patterns are not really clear and they have sometimes some errors. This is something that concerns me from knitting most of their designs, but this is a yoke sweater, so you just need it top down, featuring some short rows and the simple structure, so I don't really see a lot of complications from my personal experience, so I'm not so afraid or intimidated to knit this pattern. It is a thick and quick knit on 5.5mm needles with a worsted weight yarn held together with a lace weight, which is mohair in this case. Something that really grabbed my attention is the simplicity and minimalism of the whole design. Beautiful choice, and I would see myself wearing this on the long walks when it's really cold, or even in the mountains when I'm just going for a hike. One day hike, obviously, not a multiple day hike. And besides that, it could be just a very nice winter knit. I wouldn't personally knit this right now because we have a springtime, but it is a perfect knit to start in the autumn time and enjoy during the winter. So we have 16 stitches per 10 centimeters, and the recommended yarn is Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino, which is 100% merino. It is quite a sturdy merino, not the most softest to the skin, but that's actually very nice because it's quite thick, so if it's really soft and really drapey, the garment is not going to hold the shape really well, and usually when we're using really thick yarn, we want some wearability and durability. You need it top down seamlessly, and you do have some short row shaping. I don't know if it's right in the neckline or in the sleeve area, and in the back it's not mentioned, but having short rows always helps in the yoke instructions so we don't choke ourselves here in the neckline. But overall, it looks very beautiful and I'm excited to knit it one day for sure. Next pattern is Aldeburgh Sweater by Cheryl Mokhtari again. This knit is perfect for spring, and if we start right now, it shouldn't take that much time because it is a DK weight project. It is mentioned in the Ravelry that is a fingering weight project, but I think it's a little mistake because we have light fingering held together with a lace mohair or sur alpaca, so it gives us a DK weight or light DK weight project, I guess, because the stitch gauge is also 21 stitch per 10 centimeters, knitted on 4mm needles. So what do we have in this beautiful pattern? Wonderful raglan, super wearable with a beautiful detail, very tiny cables and the raglan lines that continue along the underarm area with 3 cables and little stockinette panels. Beautiful. I love, as I already said before, this type of designs. Plain minimalistic design, but with some detail that first of all doesn't make the knit so boring and makes this sweater different from all of the previous raglans that you've made before. Also quite drapey because we're holding here, as I already said, light fingering and the silk mohair together, and because of the silk and the airiness between the stitches, we're achieving a beautiful drape and some breathability, which is something I always appreciate, especially during the springtime. So the yarn recommended is the Knitting for Olive Merino fingering weight held together with a mohair and some other yarns, but this is one of the recommendations. But if you've tried knitting for olive before and you have a lot of garments and you're just looking forward to try something new, or you just prefer to use something else, I have some ideas for you, something very, very beautiful, which is Pasquale Manada held together with Pasquale Baby Merino. So what it is, the merino is the fingering weight merino yarn that has 220 meters per 50 grams, which is nearly the same as knitting for olive, but I guess it's a bit thicker, just a tiny bit thicker, almost unnoticeable. And the texture is a bit smoother, it's not so lofty as knitting for olive is. So I guess it provides just a tiny bit more drape, but not too much drape as Sunday by Sedna's Garn would do, or any other really silky merino would do. I suggest to hold it with Pasquale Manada. So Manada is a very interesting and special blend of 40% mohair, 45% mohair, 25% silk, 15% yak, and 15% virgin wool. So this combination creates such an interesting texture. I would say it looks like a matte and thick mohair in the garment, but it feels way softer than the mohair. So if you're a sensitive person, this is something I truly suggest to try. And if you would like to go for this type of combination, you can have 10% discount because I'm partnering with this gorgeous German brand. If you buy any Pasquale yarns through my link, you get automatically applied 10% discount. So the way you knit the sweater is top down seamlessly. You start with a neck that is folded over and attached, then you start increasing with the raglan lines and doing some short rows for the neck shaping, and just keep on knitting down as a normal raglan as we're used to, nothing complicated. The next sweater is not released yet because today is 18th of March and I guess it's going to be released either next week or maybe in the end of March. But it is Saga Sweater by Petite. Since she started to knit it, I knew I'm going to be knitting this for sure. There is something special about it, and I think the main feature, the key feature, is again minimalistic look, like the pearl panel with some detailing. I don't really like really busy cabled sweaters. Well, depends on the design, but usually I'm not a fan of them. But this is so beautiful. I'm so in love. And this sweater is a very cozy, warm option for winter time. I wouldn't knit it right now, of course, but I would for sure save it for the beginning of autumn to enjoy it during the entire winter time when it's cold enough. This sweater is something that reminds me of the times when my mother was young, when it was old times and people were wearing those chunky, really high collar knits or sweaters. So the sweater is knit on 4.5mm needles with Sedna's Garn Atlas. Sedna's Garn Atlas is a mix of Norwegian lamb's wool, 70% and 30% merino. Sounds quite nice and soft. I also thought so, but when I tried this yarn, I have a swatch with this, I realized that I can't really wear this next to my neck, and that is actually good because I really enjoy the structure and the look of this yarn. And if I wouldn't try this yarn before, I would just immediately buy the whole sweater quantity when the pattern is out and be immediately disappointed when I hold it up next to my neck because it is scratchy to my neck. And as we see, we have a very high collar. I was thinking on any alternatives that could provide me with the same loftiness, but I don't really know exactly what. I have only one option in mind right now. It could be Gilead by Durerem Nature or Robinson by Durerem Nature, held with something else. I don't know with what. I'm still thinking on options, but I'm afraid that any option that I have in mind would create a drapey fit, a smooth fit, which I don't want for this design. I want this loftiness, I want this stickiness that the Sadness Garden Atlas has, and the lightweight feeling as well, but I want something a bit softer. And Gilead from Durerem Nature is not that soft. It is softer than Sadness Garden Atlas. I don't know, I would need to swatch and see if it works out. And I'm afraid I'm going to have tons of swatches before I actually start the project. If I don't find anything else, I would just go with a scratchy atlas and knit it and just wear it with the inner layer underneath. That could be my solution. So the way we knit it is top down seamlessly, where we knit 2 panels first, back and front, and the body, and then we cast on stitches for the sleeves, hopefully doing some short rows and finishing our sweater. Quite a beautiful knit that is going to be for sure on my needles this autumn. The next one is Kitsch Cardigan by Sedna Yang. Sedna Yang is also mentioned in my July knitting pattern roundup. Check that video out because there's another beautiful cardigan for her and I am still thinking about it. It's just a beautiful piece of art. The link is going to be down below in the description box. And this time she also released a gorgeous cardigan that follows a similar idea and the motif, and both of those cardigans have very unique construction, which we speak about later. So right now about the motif, this is a beautiful, really warm colorwork cardigan that could be worn as an outer layer. It's really warm because it's a stranded colorwork and the yarn that is used is also really warm. And the gorgeous floral motif that is combined with little stars and maybe some berries is a beautiful addition to the summer and the spring wardrobe as well. I really enjoy it. So I see so many versions in so many different colors and we can really play with our fantasy and figure out our best combination, and that would create completely different look. I would still enjoy the combination of the dusty blue and cream, light cream or white color. This is one of my favorite combinations when it comes to colorwork motifs, but I'm sure red and white or mint and white, pink and white, any sort of combination could just pop up so beautiful in this type of motif. The gauge is 23 stitches per 10 centimeters. We're knitting this with a light DK weight on 4mm needles. So it is a warm garment but not so heavy. And the yarn that is used is also really nice and lightweight, lofty, and in the way textured. It is a really nice lightweight yarn and it sticks really nice, so it's perfect for the colorwork as well. So Jensen is quite scratchy, but this is a really deep V-neck cardigan, so I'm not afraid to use this yarn. I would also have some layer, and even if it scratches my back a little bit here at the top, that is absolutely fine. The worst is when it's next to my neck or here in the bones. That is the worst. So the way it's knitted, first of all, I couldn't find information in the description the way it's knitted, which is not the best. I really don't want to go through Ravelry or Instagram finished objects to find out what am I supposed to do with the cardigan. I would like to have all of the information in the description. I don't know, maybe designer forgot to put it, but I had to go through the pictures and I found out that it's knitted in the same way as the previous cardigan from July pattern roundup. You knit it top down with sticks at the armholes and the sticks at the front. If you don't know, the sticking is actually cutting through the finished fabric. So you add some additional stitches to strengthen the seam that you're going to cut through. And you're basically knitting a tube in the round with some obviously increases, some shaping. But then you don't have to knit the colorwork flat, just like in Zosia Cardigan, where it could be complicated and actually annoying for a lot of people. It's amazing, the fact that you can knit the whole cardigan in the round and then cut through the fabric. So that was a beautiful floral cardigan that for sure deserves a spot in my wardrobe. The next pattern is still not released yet as I'm recording, but I'm sure it's either releasing this week or the next week. So it is a flow loop v-neck by Other Loops. I am just in love with this combination of details. First of all, the deep V that doesn't have any sort of finishing that really caught my attention immediately. Second of fold these gorgeous lines across the whole sweater and the saddles, because this is a saddle shoulder construction, as well as the imitation of ribbing in the bottom with the same lines, the same stitch motif. I don't know what type of stitch motif it is exactly. Either it's tiny cables or maybe some sort of other manipulations. I've never tried this type of motif, but I really enjoy how it's looking. What I like in the ribbing is that it's not very bouncy. It doesn't cinch in the whole garment, and at the same time it provides a beautiful neat finish and a very interesting detail at the bottom of the sweater. So something to point out that the V looks quite deep. So if you don't enjoy this type of deep V's, or depending on the length of your torso, it could be either deeper V-neck or shorter V-neck. It's not the same on every single body, right? Maybe we could wear some top underneath, like to show up the triangle of the top, and that could look beautifully, especially if it's a contrast top like white color or maybe red, or maybe the same color as the sweater. So the sweater is quite thick. It is knitted with a worsted weight yarn on 5 or 5.5mm needles. I don't know exactly because the pattern is not out yet, but I'm aware of yarn that is used. The yarn that is suggested is Lank Yak, that contains of 75% ultrafine merino wool or extra fine and 30% yak. So the wool that is used here is extremely soft already, plus we're adding some yak to that. Yak wool is also very nice and soft. It is also considered as a cheaper version of cashmere, but of course it's completely different animals, different properties. But yak is very, very warm, and adding those 30% of yak to the whole sweater is a very beautiful idea, because yak itself is expensive fiber, and with 30% of it in the sweater we can enjoy the properties of it, but don't pay the full price for it, right? Lank yak is a very lightweight yarn for the thickness of it, due to the structure and the way it's spun. This yarn is on my list to try. I've never knitted with this, and every time I see a design that is published with this yarn, I'm so excited to knit it. The construction of the sweater is a saddle shoulder construction, where you first knit the saddles separately. I guess you should start in the middle. That's my guess. You shape the neckline, knitting in both directions, first one direction, then second. You're forming those saddles, and on top of them you then start shaping the back and the front and the sleeves. The whole garment is completely seamless, and as for now, as from the pictures, I can understand that it's really nicely shaped and nicely made. I'm really looking forward to knitting this. Maybe not right now again, maybe that's the project for the autumn time, but it is a very fast knit as well. So if you're living in the colder region and these type of garments make sense for your temperatures, you can probably get this sweater done in 2 or 3 weeks. It is knitted on thick needles. The next design is Cassis Polo by Soumine Kim. Soumine Kim is a Korean designer that I literally adore, and I mention her quite often in my Korean pattern roundups. I've got entire playlists on Japanese and Korean pattern roundups that are available in English, and if you're new here and you haven't seen those videos, I truly suggest that you go and check those videos out, because you can discover so many new designers that are maybe not so popular in the English knitting community, but still release high quality patterns available in English. So Soumine Kim is one of them, and she released this gorgeous polo. Now, before I speak about the polo, I have to immediately say that the yarn choice is not really my favorite for this type of polo, and it doesn't really show up completely the beauty of the stitch motif. That's my personal opinion. So that to prevent from seeing the whole look of being like a rustic polo and saying no, that's not my thing. Depending on the yarn that we're choosing for this project, it could be a completely different look. If we're choosing some drapey silky yarns, this is going to be a beautiful spring or even summer knit. If we would choose some matte yarn but a bit more round than the recommended by designer and more firmed, we can see the pattern of the polo way more clear. So now let's look at the motif. I'm just impressed. First of all, the shape of it. It is an oversized polo that has a lot of room for you, breathability, and the open v-neck with the collar provides a lot of breathability as well. So we can definitely agree that is a gorgeous pattern for spring, transitional seasons like beginning of autumn, and cool summer days, because you still get a lot of flow of air through oversized feet and through lace pattern, but you still stay warm and cozy. And the color that we're going for will make a big difference. If we go for light colors, we can see more clearly all of those beautiful lace motifs and stockinette panels, and the laciness of the whole garment would show up even more. But if we choose darker colors like in the sample, or even darker, in my opinion, it really hides all of those beautiful lace motifs and the work that you put into the garment. So now let's speak about the yarn. The recommended yarn is Easier Tweed, held together with Easier Alpaca. Tweed is a sport weight yarn and alpaca is a lace weight. So I personally don't like Easier Tweed. It's just not my taste. First of all, it's very scratchy. Second, it's a roving yarn, so it doesn't have much spun in it. It's just like a plain cord, right? It's not 2-ply or 3-ply or any ply. There is no ply literally. And when it's knitted either in stockinette or in cables or lace like we see right now, it creates a very rough, rustic look with quite uneven texture. Some people really enjoy it, and if you're that type of person, then maybe it's a perfect yarn choice if you're not so sensitive. And since we're going to wear it in the springtime, if we sweat even a little bit or we get a bit warm, the scratchy yarns become even more scratchy. So what would I go instead for? I would go for another sport weight yarn that is way more round and way more even in the textures, so we can see through the lace pattern a bit nicer. If I had to suggest the tweed yarn that is not scratchy, that has the same weight and has the round texture, I would go for Lamanna Common Tweed. Lamanna Common Tweed is very smooth, quite lightweight, has just a bit of drape because it's still a merino wool, but it is a matte merino. It doesn't shine so much and it doesn't grow a ton with blocking. So that would be the first strand. And the second strand is Easier Lace Alpaca, which is 100% alpaca. You can go with this if you want, or any other lace weight that you prefer. It could be mohair strand, it could be alpaca lace or sur alpaca, anything at your choice. The next one is Heart's Desire Sweater by Wilma Ellison, also here on YouTube. She has a wonderful channel and she released her first design, and I'm honestly truly impressed. It is such a wonderful design. As I already said before, I'm not a fan of a very busy cabled pattern. This is one of them, but I really enjoy it because it's so harmoniously put together, and every single cable, every single detail, every single stitch is right on point. It has to be there. I think it's a beautiful balanced design, and definitely I would enjoy wearing it during the cold season. What also grabbed my attention is a very thick, beautiful rounded neckline that is really well shaped. That also adds a lot of elegance and femininity to the whole sweater. You can knit it a bit shorter if you want just a bit more space here at the neck, or if you live in a very cold region and you do appreciate really high neck, you can knit the full length just like the designer did. I would maybe do it a bit shorter because I enjoy just a bit more space here at my bones. But actually the high neckline, if you want to modify it, could look also really beautiful with this design. I'm sure of it. Overall, we have an oversized sweater with a beautiful drop shoulder, good roomy sweater. I saw that the testers, or already some other people who knit the sweater, needed way more oversized than suggested by the designer, which looks also absolutely gorgeous. So that depends on you. If you just want more room, go for a bigger size. I would probably go for a little bit more oversized fit, and that could just look so beautiful in my wardrobe. I can already dream about it. So regarding the yarn weight, it is saying on Ravelry that we're using worsted plus lace, but I think we're using DK plus lace because the suggested yarn is per Ghent held together with the silk mohair, and the whole garment is knit on 4mm needles. We need to achieve the gauge of 25 stitches per 10 centimeters in the cabled motif, so definitely not worsted plus lace. And the per Ghent that is used as a main thread by Sedna's garn is quite scratchy to most people, not only to me. It is 100% Norwegian wool, so if you're not sensitive to wool, that is a perfect, absolutely perfect choice. I really like the stitch definition, the firmness and the structure of the yarn, and the durability of it and the warmth. But if you're sensitive to wool, I wouldn't go with this yarn. So what I've seen on Ravelry, one person used Drops Lima. And while I'm not a fan of Drops yarns overall, I do like Drops Lima and some of the other yarns from Drops. Drops Lima is 65% wool and 35% alpaca. Alpaca adds quite a good amount of drape, and it doesn't allow the cables to stinge in right after you knit it and you block it. Because the worst thing is to knit the whole garment hoping for very beautiful drapey oversized fit and the cables just stitching in, even if you block it and steam it. So that is something to consider actually. If you choose a very high twisted yarn, that could be dangerous because the cables would constantly just stay together. Which mohair to hold it with is already up to you. I can point to the screen my favorite mohairs and that are soft, that are nice, and they suit my sensitive skin. And also if you would like to explore some other mohair substitutes, there are so many different fibers in the world, right? You can see the video on my channel, the mohair substitutes for sensitive skin, for non-sensitive skin, and discover so many beautiful options for you. So the construction is worked top down seamlessly. You knit the back panel first, then 2 front panels, connect them together, knit the body, and knit the sleeves separately top down. Beautiful, simple construction, very familiar to us already, and this sweater is completely worth all of the effort. And the last one for today is actually a scarf, and that is called My Breezy Little Scarf by Lisa Hannes. Before I speak about it, I just want to say that I have a whole entire video on my channel about the scarves. All of those scarves in that video are perfectly suitable for springtime, and all of them were released in the last year of 2025, so a lot of them could be very much new to you. And I actually mentioned a few patterns of Lisa Hannes there as well. So this time she released a gorgeous lacy scarf. The lace is not that complicated, it's quite a popular motif that we can see in different tops, socks, different scarves, and maybe some of you already have knitted this type of motif. What I like about the scarf, first of all, is the size. So we can either wear it completely long open or wrap it once around our neck and still have a beautiful ends on your chest. This is my favorite size, and it increases very gradually to the middle. So the widest point is not like a sharp triangle, but a very gradual increase. One of my favorite formats of the scarf. Second thing that I paid attention, and I always pay attention to, is non-rolling edges. So there is a garter stitch and some double knit edging to prevent from rolling inwards or outwards. This problem constantly stops me from knitting so many different scarves, and I'm so glad that the designer took care of that. The whole scarf is knitted on 4.5mm needles with 26 stitches per 10 centimeters in a lace motif, and the yarn that is used is a sport weight yarn. Now, I really don't like the chosen yarn, honestly, my personal preference, because it's a superwash merino wool from Malabrigo. I just don't like superwash merino overall in general, especially in the scarf motif, especially in lace. So I would go for cashmere. That would be my choice. For this project, I would need 2.5 balls. I would go with my favorite cashmere, which is Pasquale cashmere, 628, and I would honestly modify it to make it a bit longer or maybe wider to use all of the 3 balls. Do not have a yarn left over. I also enjoy quite a lot Cardiff cashmere, but they're still different with Pasquale. They just have a bit of a different properties, and I suggest to try both and have experience with both if you're a fan of cashmere just like I am. So if you want to go with Pasquale, remember that you have 10% discount if you buy it through my link. It is also down below. You're knitting the scarf from beginning to the end, so from tip to tip, starting here, increasing all the way to the widest point and finishing with another tip. Really nice, simple knit, and it looks honestly store-bought, really beautiful and absolutely perfect for spring. I would knit one for myself and one for my mother. I think she would be really happy to wear that. So that was it I wanted to share for today. Thank you so much for joining me, for enjoying these new patterns with me. I'm so excited. I have so much inspiration constantly. I don't know how it works, but this is how I feel about knitting and about all of these talented designers. I'm wishing you lots of enjoyable time during your spring knits. Let me know what you're knitting on right now, so maybe I can gather some inspiration from your comments as well. And I'm just hoping to see you soon in my next video.